Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so glad to have you here with us today. Welcome to our webinar, Creating a High Trust Culture in Today's Work Environment. I am thrilled to host this event. My name is Owie, Sales and Marketing Practice Lead for FranklinCOvey, Nigeria. Good to have you all here. Please tell us in chat where you are joining from. Would love to know. Where are you joining us from? Oh, wow, I see Abuja, Lagos. Amazing. Jos. Interesting. Quite a number of diverse places here. Amazing. Thank you so much. Also put in chat your expectation from today's session. What would you want to get out of today's session? In FranklinCOvey, we call it beginning with the end in mind. What's the end in mind for you? How would you want this 60 minutes to be used? What do you want to gain out of it? Amazing. Great. So before we go in, keep the thoughts coming in chat. I'd like to walk you through our agenda. Welcome again. Now do a quick poll to check if there are people here who have experienced FranklinCOvey, and then I'll tell you a little bit about FranklinCOvey Nigeria. We'll take some insights from the trust that we ran preparation for this meeting. Then we'll jump into the meat of it, the presentation itself. with our esteemed and expert facilitator in the house. Then we'll go on to the question and answer session, do a quick poll, and we'll wrap it up. I must tell you, you have to ensure you wait till the end of this meeting. Why? There is a gift for you. Yes, there is a gift for you. So I'm looking forward to sharing that gift with you. Please ensure you stay to the end. Now, have you had the opportunity to experience a FranklinCOvey solution or attend a webinar? Please go ahead and fill in the poll very quickly. Ah, I see. Quite a number of people have not had an experience with FranklinCOvey. Amazing. Oh, please keep it coming. Great. Okay. Now that I know that, I can share with you a little bit about FranklinCOvey. We are the most trusted leadership company in the world. Why? We help organizations achieve results that require collective behavior change. We've done this in 160 countries plus. We served and are serving, and inclusive Nigeria. We've been here for almost 30 years, supporting organizations to achieve their wildly important goals. As a top leadership company, FranklinCOvey has been at it for over 35 years. And we continue to invest in research to ensure that we understand the trends, the current trends applicable to current challenges that organizations are going through. There are 4 areas that are identified as most challenging, areas that each organization that wants to succeed must pay attention to. These are the areas where FranklinCOvey supports organizations to achieve their wildly important goals. Developing exceptional leaders at every level. This is so important. Instilling habits of effectiveness in every individual, very key. Building an inclusive high trust culture, and we're here today discussing trust, very important as well. Using a common execution framework to pursue most important goals as an organization, this also is very important. Now, if I would jump into the survey, and just to give you a little bit of context, when we started to prepare for this trust webinar, we realized we want to understand currently what's going on in organizations. Is trust a problem, or the lack of trust, if you would say? Is it a problem? You'll be amazed at the results we got. Go with me on this journey. We started with levels of trust in organization. Over 50% of respondents say there's either no trust, low trust, or so-so trust in the organization, making this webinar even most important. Positive contributors to building trust in organizations include communication, integrity, feedback, honesty, transparency, vulnerability, responsibility, and the list is endless. How about the negative contributors to reducing trust in organizations? A lack of accountability, lack of communication, dishonesty, manipulative behaviors, lack of keeping to promises, and of course, the list is endless. In terms of financial analysis or cost, is there a cost to low trust or no trust in organizations? Oh, sure. And it's interesting. The results show that the list is the whole continuum from unquantifiable to millions, even billions of naira that can be spent or lost rather when it comes to looking at trust in organizations. So productivity reduces, attrition rate increases. A lot of wastage of resources can occur because of this. Are there actions that can be done that will significantly impact trust in organizations? Of course. There's a lot around leaders. Encouraging, rewarding, fostering, discussing, building, delivering, things around honesty, reward, integrity, promises, and keeping of promises, building a culture, fostering honesty, and many more. And so, in the words of Stephen Covey from The Speed of Trust, I quote, trust is the glue that holds everything together. It creates an environment where people and take risks, be vulnerable, and collaborate. When trust is high, the dividend is high. When trust is low, the dividend is low. And when trust is gone, there is no dividend at all. On the platform of this, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Our speaker, Tony Osime, is an expert at what he does. A delivery consultant, coach, and facilitator for over 30 years. He's been with FranklinCOvey, and in his own words, he says the FranklinCOvey solutions have been transformational to his career and his life in general. And so join me and make welcome our speaker, Tony Osime. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you very much. And I am going to share my slides. And while I'm doing that, I will say thank you for the introduction. And yes, it's true. It's been a transformational experience for me. And one of the reasons I deliver these sessions is that I want to have other people experience the same transformation. It's one of the few things that I think I can do that we all benefit from. So welcome again to today's session, and I hope you can see my slides. I will now go to my next
Tony,
slide.
could you adjust your mic, please?
Okay, I just noticed that my mic went off. So
yeah,
can you hear me
great now? Yes,
okay,
please.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're looking at trust, and we're looking at some data collected by FranklinCOvey in 2023. And it came from the MIT Sloan Management Review, and it said that trusting employees are 260% more motivated to work. Trusting employees have 41% lower rates of absenteeism. Trusting employees are 50% less likely to look for another job. So this gives you a sense of the impact of trust worldwide. Now, if I move on to our own data, it's been already said, so I won't go into it much, but essentially that we have a 52% potential for improving trust based upon the data we've received. We've looked at what we call the positive contributors, and we noticed that one of them is communication. And my question here is this a symptom or is this the root cause? Because very often we can mix them up. And I think I'll talk about it as we go on. But if we look at trust, trust might be the root cause and communication might be the symptom. Next, we have the negative attributes of trust. I think this is well taken care of. And again, we might ask it, are these the symptoms or the root causes? Then we've got the cost. We have many figures, but the key thing is that the cost is very high. The perceived cost is very high. And one part of that is that we don't measure very accurately the cost of trust because it's a bit qualitative. Some things are hard to measure, and we're not used to measuring it. And then how do we build trust? So we've got lots of answers here, but I think by the time you finish this session, you'll see that there's probably a better way if you have a good program. Okay, so let's start today's session. And I'm going to start with a video. I thought it was a really good video by Stephen Covey, the son of the late Covey. And this video is called The Speed of Trust. And it has an intriguing title, which is, What If You Could See Trust? Now, when we started, there was a mention of the glue of trust. Trust is a glue. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be interesting if we could just visualize the amount of glue linking us all together in any situation? Maybe that's a way of seeing trust. Okay? But let's watch the video and let's see what we can get from this video.
Never has there been more required of leaders and organizations than there is today. Expectations are higher than ever. Change is faster than ever. And the pressure to perform is unrelenting. And at the end of the day, you're still accountable for results. For many leaders, even good leaders, it seems like everything, even the simple things, take longer and cost more. So what's missing? Engagement, collaboration, innovation, leadership? After working with thousands of teams and organizations all over the world, we have come to know this. Most organizational performance issues are actually trust issues in disguise. The simple, often overlooked fact is this: work gets done with and through people. Organizations are made up of an infinite number of human connections, and those connections are held together by trust. That's why there is nothing more impactful on people, their work, and their performance than trust. You can see the symptoms of low trust everywhere. Like a virus, the symptoms show up as disengagement, lethargic execution, resistance to change, and lack of collaboration. But what if you could see trust? Not just the symptoms, but what if you could actually see trust? What if you could see the level of trust in an organization? What if you could see the level of trust in your organization? And more importantly, what if you could see the level of trust within your own team? What would you notice that you don't normally see? You'd see that even on teams with good, honest, capable people, counterfeit behavior diminishes trust and undermines performance. And once you see it, the destructive impact of counterfeit behavior becomes clear. But here's the tricky part. Trust begins with you. It starts with your own credibility. In the same way that you can behave your way out of trust through counterfeit behavior, you can also learn to intentionally increase your credibility and behave your way into trust. In fact, there are 13 specific behaviors found in every collaborative, engaged, high-trust, high-performing culture. In order to compete in today's world, creating a high-trust culture is not just a nice-to-have, it's a necessity. It is the foundation of all high-performing organizations. To survive and thrive, leaders need to inspire their people and lead teams that are agile, collaborative, innovative, and engaged. You can unknowingly ignore, underestimate, or neglect the laws that govern trust, but they will not ignore you. We've spent the last 20 years developing the framework and process for creating the one thing that drives all organizational performance. We're FranklinCOvey, and we know trust.
Excellent video. I'm so impressed with the videos of FranklinCOvey. So, what did we get from that? What I got was that if I learned more about trust, if I understood trust, I might be able to see trust in my organization. And it might start with seeing trust in myself. It's as if I can get a new pair of glasses that gave me a supervision, which would allow me to see trust all around me. So let's look at this. To keep things simple, we'll talk about three big ideas. One is that everything we say and do affects the level of trust on our teams. In fact, as I'm talking to you now, my words are influencing the level of trust you have with me. That's one of the things I need to appreciate. Second is that trust is an observable performance multiplier. We mean that trust can improve things if it's high or make things worse if it's low. It's actually a multiplier. And the third is that creating high trust is a set of learnable skills. It's not esoteric, it's not vague, it's not hard to do. It can be made more concrete and more real. So let's take the first one. Everything we say and do affects the level of trust on our teams. Now, in our program, Leading at the Speed of Trust, we go into a lot of detail on this, but here I'll just give you an outline. And here I'll just talk about 3 simple modules. Module 1, the case for trust. Module 2, be a high trust leader. And module 3, extend, restore, and develop trust. Now, I'd like to do a quick exercise. I'd like you to imagine a leader, past or present, that you trust. How did you feel around them? What do they say or do that causes you to trust them? Please put your results in the chat. And while you're doing this, I will give you my own example. I won't mention names, but I remember that a leader I had that I could trust, I felt very comfortable around them because I didn't have to second guess whatever they were doing. In other words, I could focus on the problem without thinking about other things. And then what they said or did was fairness. They had integrity. They had high ethics. So that gave me confidence that they treated everybody with the same level of fairness. There'll be no favorites in terms of our team. So that was my memory with the person with high trust. Thank you very much. I'm seeing some items in the chat. Now, let's do the same exercise, but this time with a leader that we don't trust. In other words, a leader that we didn't trust in the past or we don't trust now. Again, how do you feel around them? What do they say or do that causes you not to trust them? Please put your answers in the chat. While you're doing that, I will give you my own recollection. And what I felt was nervous. I never felt comfortable. And one of the reasons was that whenever they said something, they never told me the whole truth. They just told me the truth that serves their purpose as opposed to the truth that serves the organization's purpose. That's what I said. Oh, and I'm seeing unkept promises. Exactly. Most people you don't trust, they overpromised and underdeliver. Okay, so I think we can learn from this that as leaders, everything we say and do affects the level of trust in our teams. So let's move on. And here we're going to look at the basics, the foundation. What happens in our brain when we trust? In other words, what's the impact of trust in terms of how we think? So we'll watch the next video, Your Brain on Trust.
Start with current affairs, then hit our cover story by page 10. Oh yeah, I love to know.
When people send us low trust signals through what they say and do, we feel uncertain, unsafe, even suspicious of them, which can kick us into survival mode. This survival response overrides the part of our brain that handles complex thinking, slowing or even shutting it down, and limits our ability to do quality work quickly. Everything slows down. We're too busy trying to survive. When people send us high trust signals by what they say and do, our survival response calms down. We feel safe and confident, which allows our complex thinking to come back online, which frees us up to communicate, collaborate, and innovate with speed. Do our trust signals make it easier or harder for the people around us, our teams and organizations, to operate at the speed of trust?
Excellent video. What this video shows us is that trust interacts with our fundamental instincts. In other words, it's built into our behavior at the level of our brain. So one way to look at it is that our brain doesn't like to work too much. So it goes into this automatic mode. And that automatic mode is one where if we trust somebody, we'll do a lot. We'll do so many things because we can do it without thinking. Again, if we don't trust somebody, we won't go into this automatic mode and we end up having to think about so many things, which actually slows us down. What it tells us is that trust is a fundamental component of the way our brain works. Now, let me pose another question. And I'll say be truthful here. How do our colleagues and teams generally view us? And I'll ask you to put your answer if you want to, but just reflect on it. Is it with suspicion or is it with confidence? And how would you measure this? How would you assess this? In other words, in terms of the scale, is it more suspicion or more confidence? Where would it show? So just think about that as before I go on. And if I thought of it myself, what comes to mind is that a lot of it is based on my past behavior. I know a lot, when I have an interaction right now, a lot of it is based on my past behavior. So that's my sort of insight on that. And my insight is that I can actually change it if I think about what my future behavior will be. So let's move on. Now, if we wanted to understand trust, how would we define it?
12:30 p.m.
How would we explain it to somebody? And one way to do that is the definition given by Stephen Covey, which is trust is confidence born of character and competence of a person or an organization. The opposite of trust is suspicion. Let me read that again. Trust is confidence born of the character and the competence of a person or an organization. The opposite of trust is suspicion. This is simply saying that trust is a combination of your character, that is your integrity, as well as your competence, that is your knowledge and your skills. It's when these two come together that high levels of trust can arise. And when you don't have trust, what you have in place of that is suspicion. So that takes us past the first big idea. Let's move to the second big idea. The second big idea is that trust is an observable performance multiplier. Let's examine this. Now, when trust is low, what happens? If you think about it, you'll notice that the speed of things goes down and the cost of things go up. And this happens in so many ways. For example, when trust is low, the rate of people leaving increases. As more people leave, you have to replace them. And there's a cost of replacing other people. So you can see low trust leads to high cost. Another part would be the speed of processes. When trust is low, you find that people will often have to check on the steps in a process to make sure they've got it right. They are fearful of doing something new or unusual. There's much less initiative. All these things slow down processes, and we end up with a reduced speed. So what do we see? Low trust reduces speed and increased costs. We call this the trust tax. The trust tax. Now, what if we had high trust? What happens? Notice that when trust is high, what happens to speed? It goes up. When trust is high, what happens to cost? It comes down. This combination of higher speed and lower cost is what we call the trust dividends. And our aim is to convert trust taxes into trust dividends. Now, what are these trust taxes? I won't go into all of them because we go through them all in the program, but look at some of them. One, reluctant compliance. In other words, you don't get the full energy and innovation of people. What they do is do enough just to get by. Another one is silos. You find that people tend to trust within their department, but they don't trust people outside their department. Another one is low productivity. In other words, with low trust, we pay the trust tax of lower productivity. I could have done more, but I end up doing less. Now, let's look at the trust dividends. Again, I'll just take a few. But here we've got higher retention. When trust is high, people stay longer, which means there's a lower cost of replacing somebody. Another dividend is innovation. When trust is high, people are more likely to give ideas, even if these ideas seem unusual or wild. We know that we can use an idea to lead on to other ideas. When trust is high, these ideas come up. When trust is low, we won't have these ideas. So these are examples of trust taxes and trust dividends, which will be the result of your trust profile. So what do we find? In terms of more data, organizations with the highest levels of trust have revenue growth that is 3.6 times more than organizations with the lowest levels of trust. Highest level of trust go 360 times the revenue growth of organizations with the lowest level of trust. So, something else which is an insight is that most team performance issues are trust taxes in disguise. What does that mean? It means that when we observe a team with low trust and we see them performing poorly, we might think that that performance is due to communication or due to systems or due to people or skills that are needed. However, when we look more deeply, we find that these are just symptoms. They're not the true problem. That the underlying problem, the root cause, is the trust tax that we are paying. And this disguised perspective is something that we should bear in mind, because in organizations all around us, we're seeing the symptoms. We've got to understand what is the true root cause, or what is the root cause, not just the symptoms. And from that perspective, our goal then is to convert the taxes of trust into the dividends of trust. And one of the things we appreciate from this is that nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. In terms of the acceleration it can make in terms of output and performance, trust is possibly number one. It's huge. It can make an immediate impact on a very large number of people. And as people interact, this synergy leads to higher speed. Nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. So we said that trust is confidence, born of the character and competence of a person or organization, and the opposite of trust is suspicion. And what we're saying here is that once we build trust, we can look forward to much greater speed, much better performance. So let's look at the third big idea. And here we go into a framework for trust. And the big idea is that creating high trust is a set of learnable skills. Now, we used to think, or maybe we still do think, that trust is something very qualitative. It's something nebulous. It's a feeling. It's something that is hard to quantify. And what we want to help you understand is that we can convert it into a set of learnable skills. And we have a model for that. And what this model does is to break down trust. So let's go through it together. So we have trust, and then we'll ask ourselves, what are the components of trust? From our definition, what do we have? We have trust is the combination of character and competence. Excellent. So if we have character, what is the character made of? We can say it has two things, integrity and intent. Integrity is keep staying true to our values. And then intent is making sure we have the right goals and we have the right attitude. So that takes care of character. What about competence? Well, for competence, we see that the foundation is our capability. In other words, all the knowledge and the skills and the processes that we have and use. And what does that lead to? Well, it leads to results, measurable results. When we look at these 4 items, we can give it a name. We can give it the name of the 4 cores of credibility. Now, this diagram looks at the 4 cores in an interesting way, a bit like an infographic, but there's another way we can look at it, which might help us generate some insights. So here I've arranged them in a way that the character, which is integrity and intent, represent the roots of a tree. In other words, it's like a foundation. It's like the underlying basis of your overall levels of trust. So when the roots are strong, what happens to the tree? It can survive being blown down. It can thrive and grow even when things aren't going well on the surface. If water is low, the roots are there to help. Now, after we've developed the character from the roots, we now move on to the competence, which is like the leaves, the branches and the leaves of the tree. So we can see our capabilities as the branches, and then we can see the results as the leaves. And what we notice here is that the character drives the competence. And once our character is strong, things can happen on the surface that are very negative for ourselves and for the organization. But that strong character allows us to regrow the branches and the leaves. So if we come back to our original diagram, we can say that the 4 cores of credibility result in 13 behaviors. These 13 behaviors have come from research, which have looked at all kinds of behaviors in many organizations, and we divide it into character behaviors and competence behaviors, and then some behaviors that are a combination of character and competence. So you'll notice that in this diagram, we've got 3 behaviors: listen first, keep commitments, extend trust. Those are behaviors that combine character and competence. The key thing, though, is that in our program, we'll be looking at all of these behaviors, understanding them, practicing them, and seeing the impact that it has. So that's our basic breakdown. And when it comes to what we learn or what we need to learn or understand, we will review the 4 cores of credibility, both from a positive and negative perspective, and then we'll link them all to the behaviors that we can show. Now, one of the things that's useful to understand is what I'm going to call credibility perceptions. Credibility perceptions. And what underlines this is our personal biases. We all have biases, and these result in credibility perceptions. And the basic one is this: how I view myself compared to how everyone views me. I'm kind of laughing at myself when I say this, because if I did this exercise, I think that my own results would be even worse than this. In terms of results, we tend to think that we're doing well, 84%. How everybody views me, it's more like 51%. And I think I understand why in my own case. That's because I have a bias for learning things. I have a bias for discovery, invention, creativity. And not all of that is productive. So I can see that that's a challenge for me. Then we have capabilities. How I view myself is typically 78%. How everybody views me is typically 55%. Incidentally, these results are general feedback from lots and lots of surveys with lots and lots of people. Then we've got intent. The average is 88%. However, everybody views me as 58%. And this to me points to communication is so important. It's easy to have good intentions, but if you don't communicate those intentions, people will view it as a lack of intention or a lack of good intent. The last one is maybe the most sensitive, which is integrity. And most people give themselves very high levels of integrity, maybe 95%, but they're viewed by other people as much lower, maybe about 60%. And this is where you probably have the widest gap, integrity. And one of the reasons for this is that your sense of integrity might cover a much wider area, a much longer scope than the way other people view you. Other people might be looking at a narrower area and a shorter time frame. So that gap between the area and the time frame for you compared to your subordinates means that we need better communication of that gap so that we can see integrity from the long-term perspective. So integrity perceptions is one of the elements of the program that we review. Very revealing. Next is I'm going to call it, it's an interesting question. And for me, it's probably the area that I'm working on most now, which is, do I trust myself? Now, this is a very odd statement. How can I not trust myself? Okay. Now, when I say, do I trust myself? What I need to look at is, to what extent am I true to myself? And one way to look at that is, to what extent do I make and keep promises to myself? What I found is that the more promises I make and keep, the stronger my self-trust. I'm going to say it again because I'm even going to say it for me. The more promises I make and keep to myself, the greater my self-trust. And it's something that I think we need to do more of. I know I need to do it more. And it's something I need to maybe even measure, maybe even look at and measure and see the impact of it. There are times I don't feel like exercising, even though I've promised myself I'm going to exercise. Now, when I break that promise and I don't exercise, if I just let it go, my self-trust falls. Very good. I'm looking at the chat and I'm saying that it's called self-leadership. Usually very, very challenging. I agree so much. Okay, now I need to build my self-trust so that I can do what? Extend trust to others. What you'll find is that the stronger your self-trust, the easier it is to extend trust to others. And it's not enough to have trust in yourself. You have to extend trust to others. In other words, trust is like the glue that binds us all together. And the way that glue works is by extending it to everybody, and everybody extends their own trust to everybody else. So as a leader, I give others the leader they can trust. Now, let's back this up with some data. And what we have is that employees who say that their manager is always willing to listen to work-related problems are 4 times as likely to strongly agree that they trust the leadership of their organization. So the act of listening with intent, listening on a deeper level, is one way that you can build trust and extend trust to others. Okay, so we've got the behaviors that stem from character. Okay, then we have the behaviors that stem from competence. But the key is to have a balance of all of them and know that some behaviors stem from both. Again, these are details that we will go into in the full program. One of the interesting aspects of this is that we can actually fake the good behaviors. In other words, we've got 13 behaviors, but every behavior has an authentic component and a fake component. Let's examine that a little. So, can you see that all the good behaviors, all the good things that we can do to increase trust can be done on 2 levels. It can be done authentically, or it can be faked. For example, when you're communicating, authentic is when you tell the whole truth, in a way that everybody understands everything clearly. The fake communication is one where you are selective with the truth, and people have a misunderstanding which doesn't surface until much later. So for every behavior, there's an authentic and a fake way to exhibit it. And we call the fake way, we call it counterfeit. So take the example of communication. True communication would have us give the whole picture so that everybody has the whole view of everything. Counterfeit is where we start spinning, posturing, exaggerating without giving the full information. So we will go through a whole set of counterfeit activity. I won't spend time on it here. And one way out of this is the skill of phrasing what you want to say. So to make sure we're not saying it, we're not doing counterfeit communication, we might start our phrase with, here's how I see the situation. Or we might say, my intent is to be candid with you. Now, I've got a riddle for you, an interesting question. Can two trustworthy people working together have no trust between them? Please put your answer in the chat. On the surface, it looks like no. But if we look deeply, we can say, yes, it is possible that two trustworthy people working together may not have trust between them if neither person is willing to extend trust to the other person. So extending trust is a key element of trust. So what we need to do, we need to extend trust, restore trust, develop trust. And that is the end result of the program that we're suggesting for you. So let's round up with a video. And this video is called The Speed of Trust.
Trust is a chain reaction that starts with one small action and builds into a powerful force. The more high-trust connections we have, the more fulfilling and successful our relationships, teams, and organizations become. When we intentionally see and strengthen trust, we create a performance multiplier, the ripple effect that drives a high-trust, high-speed culture. Are you working at the speed of trust?
Excellent. So now I'll go into a question and answer stage. So please put your questions in the chat. I will look at some of the questions we have and see what we have. I can start with some of the questions that we already have. And one question is, why should I trust people rather than processes, or should I trust both? Okay, and my quick answer to this is that it's good to trust both, not just people, but also processes. And a good way to look at this is that we need to build trust in people, but we need to put trust into our processes so that they work together. You'll find that once you can build trust into your processes, then it tends to be a stronger part of the culture because it's done automatically as you do each process. However, people need to learn, develop the knowledge of and skills of trust to improve whatever the processes can do. So I think it's a combination of both. Another question was how trust has impact on our society. Okay, and this is a really great challenge in Nigeria because we operate in a culture where trust may be very low because integrity is very low, but we need to have the trust dividends in our organization. So there's a conflict. And what this tells me is that we need to build trust in our organizations to shield it from the negative influence of the society, but also to start influencing those outside our organization. And the immediate people outside our organizations will be our stakeholders, our clients, our shareholders, other people we work with. Once we can build our own trust, we can extend it to them and eventually extend it to more and more parts or aspects of Nigeria. So are there any other questions, or should I go on? For instance, I saw a question which is, how do I extend trust when trust has been broken? That's an excellent question. And the answer is that we need to start slowly, start from the basics. You need to start by having an understanding of trust between the two of you, and then start from where you're both aligned. In other words, it might be family, it might be the organization, it might be something else, but you have that in common as something that you both agree should be the basis of everything you do. So that aspect or that component is where you agree that you should be on the same level. And then you can work backwards from there. And then you'll now work backwards to individuals, knowing that you have that common organization goal or common family goal. The key thing, though, is that if it's broken, you need to mend it. You need to repair it. You mustn't let it keep going on. And it often starts with a conversation. And sometimes it might help if you have a third party that can moderate between the two of you, somebody that you feel has both of your interests in mind. Okay, so any questions in the chat? Let me see if there's anything. Okay, so you can stay behind if you have more questions. I'll round up now and then pass it back. So thank you very much. It's been very interesting for me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Really grateful. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for taking this long. I'm so excited and very interested in the conversation it has been. When you got to that part where you asked, do I trust myself? I mean, it's like a check, like, hold on, do I trust myself? But yes, I'm really happy that, we could really start to dig a little bit into it. Well, you mentioned the program, and yes, we do have a program called the Leading at the Speed of Trust. That's a program we can definitely run in different organizations. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, great. So sorry. That must be network. So I was saying, if you need to contact us, if you want to contact us to have a conversation as to how you can have this program run in your organization, then contact us at info@FranklinCOvey.nig.com or the number on the screen. Amazing. Someone will put that in chat for you as well. Also, we have a public workshop on one of our signature solutions, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this is coming up in October, the 8th to the 10th of October. You would also find the link in chat. You can go ahead and click the link to register. We'd love to really quickly take a poll just to check in how this session has been for you. So please just go ahead and fill in the poll. It's launching now. We quickly want to know if there are any areas that you'd like to give us feedback and what else we can support you with. This has been an amazing 50 or almost 60 minutes, Mr. Tony. Thank you so much for really sharing and speaking to the concept of trust and how important it is to us as individuals, organizations, and even as a nation and beyond. Please go ahead and fill in the survey very quickly. Thank you. It will take you a few minutes, maybe 30 seconds or so. We're really excited. And we will love to engage with you. So you can, through that same email, info@FranklinCOvey.nig.com, info@FranklinCOvey.nig.com, you can definitely reach out to us for conversations and how we can support your organization, like we have done for many organizations in Nigeria for the past almost 30 years. Great. Please keep filling in the survey. We'd love to get your feedback. As Ken Blanchard would say, feedback is the breakfast of champions. We'd definitely love to hear how this has helped you, how impactful this was. And now to the free gift. Thank you for waiting behind. Till this time, we have 6 ways your leaders can build trust and avoid breaking it. So this guide, you will get a link in your email. Since you've attended the session, you'll get a link in your email where you can download our gift for you today. So we keep promises, so you can trust us for sure. We will send this to you, and then please feel free to download it and use it within your teams and start to see. I mean, we're happy to have conversations to support you to the end of this meeting. It's the top of the hour. I can only say thank you for your time and your trust. Thank you for making our time to be with us. Thank you. If you need to stay back to ask questions, Mr. Tony is right here. He would stay back for a few more minutes to take any questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really grateful that you came. See you soon.
Okay. So I'm here for any questions. Was there any part of the delivery you wanted more detail on? Or any questions that you would like to see answered? You can put it in the chat.
I see Isaac has a question in chat.
Okay, I can see Isaac's question. How do we build trust in an operating environment where you perceive no trust in leadership? Excellent question, excellent question. And the quick answer is is invite us in to deliver this program, leading at the speed of trust. But the second answer is look at that handout that we gave, what we gave to you, six methods. You can share that, and that can be a basis for developing trust. And you can also maybe think about some sort of program. You can actually develop a program for your organization, something unique to your organization that can help to build trust. And it boils down to understanding trust, coming up with a common definition, coming up with common processes, then deciding how to implement it within your organization. So that's the basis. But remember to measure output and then celebrate successes. So these are all parts of building trust in an operating environment. Any other questions? Osim, is that Osim or Oshim? Okay, how do you deal with fake trust, not based on integrity, but on tribalistic factors? Excellent question, excellent question. And very simply, we have to understand them first. We have to say, this is where it comes from. In other words, a lot of the tribalistic values come from, in fact, it comes even from our brain. You know, we work better with people we trust, and then we can trust our people around us better than people elsewhere. So you can imagine how, going back hundreds of years, this would be a natural inclination. Trust your family and your friends. But we've gone beyond that now. We have a bigger goal. We now have organizations and we have a country, and that should come first. We should understand that our organization comes before us. Our country comes before us. Once we have that, once we all have that, then we'll see that working on that basis, we're all better off. So once we understand that, then we now say, well, how do we achieve it? And very often it means understanding other people, especially seeing the strengths of other people. We often look at the negative parts, we don't see their strengths. So we need to see their strengths and then build those strengths in, and then start building the processes that will strengthen it. Sometimes it means more interaction. One of the benefits of the NYSC program is how people are moved from their comfort zone, either where they live or their background, to a different area completely, just to let them see that people are really the same. In terms of the basics, people are the same. Okay, so any other questions? Please let me know if you have further questions, because I'm giving you very general answers. Can one be
Yeah, there's
committed?
one question from Isaac.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go
Which one?
ahead.
Was that the one I did? Or
Can
is that
one
another?
be, yes, can one be committed and yet be untrustworthy?
Yes, it depends on your commitment. What are you committed to? You know, if you're committed to yourself, easy to be untrustworthy. But if you're committed to the organization, then it's harder to be untrustworthy. And what's important is importance. It's knowing what's most important. And you're only untrustworthy when you see something else as being more important, maybe something more personal, something that has a personal benefit as being more important than something that has a wider benefit. Also, when your focus or your thoughts are very narrow and you're working automatically, you're not thinking through things, you're not rationing, you're not reasoning things. So those are factors that could make you committed, short-term, narrow focus, but be untrustworthy to others in your group. Okay, any other questions?
So maybe I can unmute Njideka because she said she had two questions up there that probably have been missed.
Okay.
So let me just, Njideka, the minutes. Okay, found you. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Njideka.
Oh, I see one of the questions. Yeah. While you're unmuting, I've got a question from you. What actions do you believe are essential for building trust? Is there a relationship between trust and emotional intelligence? Okay, now we talked about the 13 behaviors in this presentation. So all those 13 are the major behaviors that you can have to build trust. And one of them is communication, and it's actually listening. If you listen more to other people, you are building trust. For instance, don't just listen on the surface. Don't just listen with your bias. Don't listen to reply, but listen to understand in a deep way where you feel what the other person is feeling. And when you reply, try to express what the other person has said from the level of what they felt. That just doing that alone will let them know that they've been heard, that you truly understand them. So that's one immediate action or behavior to build trust. Is there a relationship between trust and emotional intelligence? Definitely, definitely, definitely. What you find is that emotions are created by the brain, and the brain has many types of processes that it uses. And we can class one type of process as what I call short term. In other words, it's fast action, it's get to the result quickly. We don't have time to think. We have to take fast action. That type of thinking can easily lead to mistrust. And it's based on this mechanism in the brain where you want to avoid danger. So to take that action, you link it to an emotion. And that emotion might be fear. So once we understand where emotions come from, we can understand the thinking behind it or the thought process behind it. And then we can choose a different response, not the immediate response, which may be fear and distrust, but a different response, which might be to be more open, to listen more carefully, and to look at alternative ways of responding, and then choose the best way based upon the future that we want. So you focus on your mutual future to guide you on the best response for a person. And you understand this as you understand your own emotions. Does that help answer the question? I didn't want to go too deeply into the emotional intelligence part. Okay, excellent. I see another question, Adama. How does one manage a stereotyped approach to trusting? For instance, using a general character or tribe to trust or not to trust. It could be on religious or professional lines too. Excellent, excellent. And I think what underlines everything here is that when you look at tribe or religion or other things, what you're doing is taking a shortcut. You're not allowing your rational part of your brain to work. You're allowing your reactive part of the brain to work. So you don't make decisions. You don't think through decisions. You simply say, I've been told this, I'm going to do it. Whereas when you now switch to thinking through things, you can now ask yourself, well, what's the basis for this? Does it make sense? Is it in my best interest? Are there other ways to look at it which might be better for everyone? And once you can free yourself from this quick thinking, a mode in which your brain works, you can free yourself to make better choices and improve trust as well. In fact, there's something I often like to say which might help. In fact, I'm thinking about it myself, but as one approach is to say, is this fundamental? Is it, did we create it? Is it man-made? Is it human-made? If it is, can I trust it? Because, you know, if we make something, we can break it or we can change it, as opposed to something which is fundamental. So if you look at, you know, a relationship with somebody else, what's fundamental is your desire to care for that other person. So, and they care for you, and then you both end up having a happy, fulfilling life. So once you have that as a foundation, you find that you don't have to go the fear route, which is this person's going to hurt me, let me run away, or let me fight. I hope that helps with that question. Okay, any other questions?
Amazing.
Mm.
I see that, well, it's like, we run out of questions, but I think that there's been a lot of questions. And thank you so much, Mr. Tony, for
You're
answering all of the
welcome.
questions.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, since there are no more questions, probably then we can wrap this up. Thank you all so much for making our time to be here. We look forward to reaching out to you and you reaching out to us so that this program can also, your organization can benefit from this program as well. Take care and see you soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.